The Bitter Side of Sweet, Chapter 4. It hurts too much to sleep more than about an hour at a time, and so I hunch against the wall, dozing between the waves of pain, until daylight seeps through the cracks in the shed door. I know that with the sun my courage will return, and I force myself to straighten so that when Musa opens the shed, I'm sitting unsupported. I see the surprise in his eyes. I take the small victory. I need all the help I can get if I'm going to change his mind. Musa, I want to work on a crew today, I say. Behind him, the boys are craning their necks to see into the shed as they clean up from breakfast. My stomach whines, but I ignore it, not breaking eye contact with Musa. For a moment, he stares at me with something that looks like admiration, but then he laughs and pulls a machete from the pile. He hands it to me and points to the edge of the grove. Go cut me a piece off the top branch of that tree, and I'll let you, he says. Limping, I walk to where he pointed. I can feel the stares of the other boys as they form into their work crews. I rest my fingers for a second against the irregular bark of the tree and take a deep breath. Then I clench the machete in my teeth and reach for the lowest branch. It's a good thing I've got the blade between my teeth because it keeps me from screaming at the pain that rips through me when I try to pull my body weight up using my arms. I scramble with my feet to get a hold on the trunk, but only about a meter off the ground, the muscles in my back give out, and I can't go any higher. Arms trembling, drenched in sweat, even from that little bit of a climb, I rest my forehead against the tree, trying to swallow my frustration before turning around. Then I drop to the ground and limp to Musa. Thought so, he says. Let me show you what you'll be doing instead. He waves me in the direction of the storage lean-to. Seydu, I call around him. Seydu looks up from where he's getting ready across the clearing with Yusuf, Abdurman, and Kanate. At least they let him work with the same team as yesterday. I see Mobito shuffling out of the clearing with his work crew too. He must have managed to prove to the bosses that he's ready to go back to the fields. I scowl. More proof that I got the brunt of Moose's anger yesterday. Be careful today, I say. Promise me. He nods. Get better, Amadou. I turn back to Musa. He points again, and I walk to the storage area. On the far side of the lean-to, a metal ring is sunk in the concrete in the ground. Musa heads into the shed and comes out a moment later, bringing a long chain with the girl attached to one end of it. Just my luck. Mobito is in the fields, and I'm left working with that one. She stumbles along beside him, and he lets her fall next to the ring, next to me. Then he threads the other end of the chain through and reattaches it to her. I glance at the girl I helped recapture. She's glaring daggers at me. I look at Musa. He arches an eyebrow. I realize he has to manage the farm and he can't have feuds between kids, so he's going to leave us here armed for a day to work it out. If we fight, if we argue, if we do nothing, we'll have found a way to be together by the time he gets back. He doesn't have to be involved, and his problem gets solved. A distant part of my mind acknowledges the genius behind this plan, even as I now doubly dread my day. I rub a hand over my face. So what are we going to do? I ask. Good choice, Amadou, Musa says. He rolls an empty plastic rain barrel to us, then points to the sacks stacked to the roof of the lean-to. We're behind on shelling pods. You and the girl here will work on that. One of the pasteurs should be by any day now, and we need to have the seeds fermented and at least 4 days dry for him to be willing to take them. Get started. With that, he tosses 2 machetes at us and then turns on his heel and walks away. I scramble forward, expecting to race the girl for the weapons, but she doesn't move, and I get there first. Now I'm left with bad options. I can keep both machetes and have her tell Musa that I didn't let her work, or I can give her one and have to watch myself all day so that I don't stumble close enough for her to stab me. I've already hesitated too long for it to be friendly when I hand one to her. I chew my lip, then consider the 2 blades. I pick the better one and toss the other so that it lands with a smack in the dust beside her. That one's for you, I say, and turn away. Musa disappears across the clearing into the trees, following Seydu and her crew from yesterday. When I hear the soft shush of the blade leaving the ground, I turn to face her. She's standing, holding the machete tightly in her left hand. I balance forward, ready to fight if it comes to that. The moment lengthens. The only sound filling the silence of the empty camp as we stare at each other is the whirring of the bugs. Well, I finally ask, breaking the silence, are you going to stand there all day like a wildcat, waiting to pounce? You're the one pointing a machete at me. Her face is swollen from the beating yesterday, one eye nearly shut, and her words come out thick and garbled through her puffy lips. I'm not going to attack you. I want to get going on these pods. Oh, right, because you're such a good boy, she sneers. I want to punch that tone out of her voice, but don't. There's not much space to fight, and we're both armed. And why are you so bad? I ask. Do you really think this is the right way to start off here? They're just going to beat you until you work. Why did you even agree to come across the border if you're going to be so awful about it? She looks at me stonily. I'm going to escape, she finally says, not answering my question. I suggest you keep out of my way. I'll do what I have to. I scowl at her again. Well, I have to fill that bucket, I say, making up a quota to keep myself on track, pointing with my machete to the impossibly large plastic barrel. By the time Musa gets here, I don't care about you. I don't even really care about myself. But the sooner I do what he wants me to, the sooner I can get back to taking care of Seydu, that little boy you tricked and hurt and abandoned yesterday. And I need to know whether you're going to try and stop me, because if I'm always looking over my shoulder at you, it's going to slow me down, and I can't afford that. At the mention of Seydu, her eyes flick from me to the edge of the clearing where the path twists into the trees. Then they flick to me again, hard and flat as roof metal. If you really wanted to do what's best for him, you'd get him out of here. My anger flares. You think it's so easy to get away from here? At least I tried. I've tried too. But all you have to do is think about yourself. I have to find a way that's safe for two. I count off reasons on my fingers. Seydu can't run very fast. Seydu can't climb very high. Seydu isn't good at keeping secrets. Seydu is afraid of the dark, afraid of snakes, afraid of the bosses. I throw up my hands. We didn't make it 10 meters before they caught us. She stares at me, unreadable. Besides, I continue, as soon as we earn out the money the bosses have spent on us, we can leave. Says who? Asks Khadija. Say the bosses. All I have to do is work hard and make sure Seydu doesn't get hurt, and then we can walk out of here, free. I think I've hidden the quaver of uncertainty in my voice, but I'm not sure. It's true that what the bosses said, but in the 2 years I've been here, I've never seen a boy earn out the money that the bosses paid the middleman from Sikasso. Plus, I don't even know what they paid for us, how much I earn a day, or how much I'm being charged for food and shelter. All of these numbers matter, and I don't know any of them, which means I have to trust that Musa is keeping track of all of them. I don't like trusting. Believe what you want. Just stay away from me, says Khadija. I'm going to take care of myself. With that, she turns. A moment later, I hear the high screech screech of her working at the chain links with the blade. I roll my eyes. Good luck to her. She can get beaten and starved until she learns her lesson. I've already learned mine, and I need to not waste any more time. I drag the chest-high barrel closer, then grab the first bag out of the towering pile beside me and settle into the pattern of the day, working as quickly as I can. The sun climbs the sky and sweat is running down my face and back, but I keep working. The pod is shiny purple-red in my hand. Thwack, thwack, crack. I split it open. I tuck my machete under my arm and scoop the cacao seeds out with my fingers, throwing them into the big blue barrel. I have no idea why we grow these seeds, no idea who wants them. Why have so many trees growing the same thing? The bosses never talk about it. They only say that the seeds leave our farm and go to the coast, or someone else buys them. For what? I asked once, but they all shrugged. No one here knows. All we know is that people in the city want these seeds, so we grow them. The seeds make a depressingly hollow splat as they hit the bottom, but I try not to notice. Once they're in the barrel, I throw the empty half husks into the bush as hard as I can. By the time they clatter to the ground in the distance, I've reached into the sack beside me and taken out another pod. I do all this in silence, except for the sound of my machete against the pods and the sound of her machete against the chains. We make no noise. Over an hour later, I finally get to the bottom of the first sack. The storage area is too full for me to take advantage of its roof shade. I shake the sack inside out to clear the twigs and bits of leaves and dust, and then I drape the burlap over the top of my head and shoulders like a giant floppy hat. The smell of dirt and pods sifts onto me, but the shade is so welcome I don't care. I put my machete point into the ground in front of me and close my eyes for a moment. Black spots dance behind my eyelids. The scritch-scritch in the background never wavers. Hakitu, I call to her. What? She doesn't pause. Are you going to be gone by the time they come back? What do you care? She mutters. Are you going to come catch me again? If you're not going to be gone by the time they get here, I say, you should start working. You can explain away some of the lack of work based on how new you are, but if they check tonight and you haven't done anything, then you're going to be beaten again. And they'll probably figure out what you're doing instead and make it impossible for you to keep doing it. I don't mention that if she's done nothing other than try to escape again all day, it will probably somehow turn out to be my fault, and I can't afford any more nights on Moose's bad side. The girl stares at the chain link she's been working on and the machete in her hand. I see her squint at the sky, judging the passing of time, estimating how long it will take her to finish. Do they always stop at dusk? She asks. Yes. She sighs, then digs a little hole in the ground and buries the few metal shavings she managed to work off the chain and turns to me. She looks at me silently, her head cocked. She reminds me of a bird, considering whether the object in the grass in front of is a worm or a snake. Show me what to do. I look at her like she's no smarter than Moribo. It's pretty clear what we have to do. I wave vaguely at the sacks. You shell them. It really doesn't get any more basic than that. Plus, I've been doing it all morning. It's not like it's a secret. She scowls. And just how am I supposed to do that? I'm not an expert on all this like you are. Somehow she makes that sound like the worst of insults. I grind my teeth and remind myself that we need to work together at this if we're going to have a good showing by the end of the day. Take a pot in the hand you don't hold your machete in and hit it hard like this. I demonstrate, thwacking the blade into the thick rind and pausing to show how I'm holding it. She picks up a pot in her right hand and swings the machete at it. I don't know whether her blade wasn't entirely straight or if she simply didn't get enough force behind it, the swing, to cut it, but the blade skims off the curved ridges of the pot and bites into her hand. Damn it! With a curse, she drops both the pod and the knife and scowls as she sucks on the fat part under her thumb where the knife cut her. You have to hit it harder, I say. And have it cut off my whole hand when I miss? No, thank you. All right, try doing it this way. I hold the pod by the stem stump, bracing it on the ground. I swing the machete over my head and land it, thwack, in the middle of the pod. I pause again, letting her get a good look at how I've done it, before I lean away and signal with the tip of my machete that she give it a try. Awkwardly, Khadija copies me, but again her swing is off and her blade angles sharply to the left. Luckily, this is away from the hand that was holding the pod, so she doesn't get cut again, but her machete clangs into the dirt and the scratched pod goes flying, hitting off of a sack and then rolling around a little before coming to rest near me. Any other great ideas? She snaps. It's not my fault you're a weakling and can't do it. I am not a weakling. She throws the machete down. I just don't know how to do it right, and you're not helping. Well, I can hardly tell you how to do it right when you don't have enough muscle to even use a machete, useless girl. Didn't you do any work at home? No, of course not. I went to school. How nice for you that you're so good at this. I'm sure it comes from years of staying here, letting them tell you what to do. She gets to her feet and takes a step toward me. What's that supposed to mean, rich girl? I'm on my feet too, shouting in her face. I don't know where she's from or how on earth a creature like her ended up here, but she's clearly rich. If her parents were throwing money away, sending a girl to school. I still have my machete in my right hand and my knuckles are aching from how tightly I'm gripping it. It means that I'm not the weak one here. I may not know how to cut pods like you do, but I don't plan to learn. I'll be out of here so soon that I'll never have to learn. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not being an expert on cracking some horrible fruit open. I tighten and loosen my grip on the machete in my hand. This girl, this stupid girl, is making me so mad. I want to lash out, shut her up forever. I wonder briefly what it would feel like to cut another person. Then I turn away, sick with my own thoughts. I stand with my back to her and look across the clearing, up, over the tops of the trees and into the sky. I pretend that I'm pouring my anger into the sky, and slowly it drains out of me. This is a trick I learned when I was little from my grandfather. Oh, Amadou, he had said, you get angry so easily, just like I did at your age. Really, Moki? Yes, but you must learn to let it go. What do you mean? I had asked him, and that's when he told me the secret of pouring my troubles into the sky. There's no problem so big, no anger so great that it can fill the sky. I try to remember Moki's words when I feel like my anger is about to make me do something dumb. We're wasting time, I say and sit. What? It's funny how confused and frustrated she sounds, ready for a fight and not getting one. But I've let myself floating in the clouds, and I can turn to her with nothing but air in my eyes. Fighting won't help us get this done. Then, as usually happens when I let go of my feelings, I find an answer. You're not going to be able to learn to go fast enough today without hurting yourself. She takes a breath in, ready to shout again, but I just keep talking. So I'll crack the pods and give them to you, and you'll open them and take out the seeds and put the seeds in the barrel and throw away the husks. This way we'll work as fast as possible. For a moment she stands there. Then she sighs and sits next to me. Fine, she says. Also, if you chew the seeds, you can get some energy, and the pulp around them has some water in it. Musa didn't leave us any food. I can bring us water from the pump, but we'll have to eat some of these to be able to work all day. As long as we don't eat too many, Musa won't notice they're missing. I see her eyes sparkle a little with interest when I tell her this, and she looks at the sack of pods in a new way. Not too many, I repeat. I reach over, pick up the pod she had been butchering, and split it in one clean swing. I toss it to her. You are a strange boy, Amadou, she says. She pulls the two halves apart and scoops out the seeds. I shrug. Eat the first handful, then put the rest in the barrel, I say. Then I find my empty place and get to work. We go on like that for hours, both sunk in a silent routine. It's easier to work with her than with Sadhu, and this surprises me. I find that I don't have to heckle the girl to stay on track, nor do I have to keep a close eye on her so that she won't eat too much. Instead, she seems to be taking her cues from me, eating when I do, stretching when I do. This keeps us in almost perfect time. She even put a bag over her head like I did to get some shade. I dart a look at our garbage area. The pile of husks is growing steadily into a small mountain. The smell of them is strong in the sun, and the sap has attracted all kinds of bugs. The flies and mosquitoes buzz around my sticky hands, but I try to ignore them. Swatting them all away would be a full-time job, and we don't have time for that. When I look, Khadijah's doing the same. She's letting flies crawl on her arms and face, and she only flicks her head to the side to dislodge them when they get near her eyes. My right arm burns with fatigue from the nonstop cutting, but there are 7 folded sacks at our feet, and I have to admit I'm pleased by our progress. I squint at the sun just a little past straight overhead. It's midday, I say. Do you want to take a break? Do you usually take a break? Only if I'm sure the bosses won't catch me at it, but yeah, usually. Sadhu needs a rest in the middle of the day, and we take a break. I'm not some little 10-year-old. 8, I correct her without thinking, then kick myself. What? She pounces on the error. 8, I mumble, picking slivers of pot off my wrists and flicking them away. Sadhu's only 8. He told me he was 10. I told him to tell everyone that. He's tall for his age, so he can get away with it. Some of the other boys can be rough. I don't want people taking advantage of him because he's so young. That makes sense, I suppose, she muses. He doesn't really act 10, does he? I'm thrown off balance by this. No, he acts very, very young. He is very young. He was only 6 when we first got here. That's why I have to take care of him. He's far too young to be doing this kind of work. And he's sloppy. I scowl off at the tree line. I should be out there with Sadhu. Instead, I'm stuck here, wishing away the hours until I can see him return to camp, all in one piece to set my mind to rest. I don't need a break. I turn around, surprised to hear Khadija speak. I was so deep in my wishing. Her eyes jump from my face when I turn, and she too stares out at the tree line. She stretches her wrists and cracks her knuckles. I'm 13, not 8. Let's keep working. I can see the tremor in her hands from the unfamiliar work, but she's managed to keep up so far, and even though I don't say it out loud, I'm grateful to this strange girl for helping me meet an invisible quota for Sadhu's sake. I reach for my machete. Okay, I say, let's get back to work.